What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Crypto Airborne. That's my name, not my real name, but my YouTube name. How are you guys doing today? So, I'm repeating myself because my bad, guys. I have it pulled up on another tab. But yeah, hopefully you guys are all doing pretty good today. I've missed the majority of the day. I was hanging out with family, but I do have some time today. I'm going to start streaming the final keynote here. I think it's about 2 hours long. It's a panel. Charles Hoskinson will be talking, so I'll be streaming that. I'll be in and out. I won't be sitting around for the whole thing, but I figure I'd do a quick market update for you guys before we jump into the final keynote here in about 4 minutes. So market's doing pretty good today. We're up 2%. Bitcoin's sitting at 43,400. We got Ethereum sitting at 3,000. Cardano, we're down $2.25, down about 3.07%. So, you know, this whole event, I don't know if it was a buy the rumor, sell the news. There was some hype, you know, yesterday around 11 a.m. when the event started. It shot all the way up to like $3. I wish $2.43 ish, I think. And then now we've just been down on the day, so not too great, but you know it is what it is. Today's National Day, or National Days. I always do this on my streams. If you guys are new, this is what I usually do. Better Breakfast Day, Johnny Appleseed Day, National Chimichanga Day, Family Day, Pancake Day. There's a bunch of things going on. Health and Fitness Day, Gold Star Mothers and Family. Wow, there's a bunch of stuff going on today. Crypto bubbles for the overall market. Top 100 coins. Uniswap's up. Wow, 26%. DYDX. Have not heard of that one. If you guys heard that one, let me know in the comments. But that's up 40.8%. Sushi Swap up 18.1%. Crypto Fear and Greed Index. We got the next update, 2 hours and 27 minutes. I always like showing this. Gives you an idea of when you could potentially get into the market. Be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. We're sitting at 27 today. Yesterday we were at 28. All right, so let's jump into the Cardano Summit. I got it pulled up right here. Another thing, if you guys didn't know, they were doing collectibles where basically you do different things, you complete challenges, watch a video, interact in the chat, you get the bison, you get whatever, or the turtle. They're going to do a prize drawing where they're going to give away 1,000 NFTs on this Terra Virtua website. So I got all those the last 2 days, so hopefully I'll get an NFT. I'll update you guys later. But let's jump right in today. We'll go to the main stage area. Should be starting here soon. And yeah, we'll go from there. So it is, looks like it still hasn't, did I go to the right one? No, I didn't. Hold up. The main stage, let's go. Live panel blueprint for 2025, plus live closing keynote from Charles Hoskinson. Boom. There we go. Okay. Why does it look different? Is this right? Let's see. I guess this is, okay, yeah, this is the main. It just looked, I guess it was, they just put me too close to the screen. So I'll pop this up here in about 1 minute. It should be starting. Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this. Maybe something will come out of it. I'm not too sure if there's gonna be any announcements or what, but I did stream last night when Charles was talking to ZZ Top, and I guess he's going to Africa for like the next 2 weeks after the summit. So he hasn't taken a vacation in years, which you know, it's always good to take some time away, especially if you're that dude. So he's going to be down there. He talked about some different countries that they're going to be working with and whatnot. So I thought that was pretty cool. Craig David hosted part 1 yesterday. I was around for that. You did great. Thanks. I tried to be there for the majority of it, but I got kids, so I had to take care of them. So I'll be hopping in and out. I got to make dinner, but here we go, guys. Right now, I don't hear anything, so let me just refresh it. Sometimes there's a couple glitches, but I'm going to refresh this, and then I'll full screen it, and the floor is theirs. Okay. Also, looks like they have subtitles. I don't know if I want that. Off, none.
Executive Vice President of Input-Output.
Along with him is Ramon Pellerin, the Chief Technology
Officer of Input-Output. He's also with Friedrich Gregard, who is the CEO of the Cardano Foundation. Next to him, well, a couple. Yeah, why not?
Woo!
Yeah, totally. Sorry, Rob and Ramon, I didn't know they were going to do that. We also have Jerry Fragascatos, Chief Commercial Officer of Input-Output. We've got Joel Telpner, the Chief Legal Officer of Input-Output, right there. Caitlin Long, the founder and CEO of Avanti Financial Group, also local legend. And of course, last but not least, Charles Hoskinson.
Yeah.
Rob?
So the purpose of this panel today is to really talk about how we take the blockchain industry from something that is viewed by many as nascent into the mainstream. And despite all of the progress that we've made to this point in creating a more equitable world, it feels to many like blockchain is still a niche or a nascent technology that is, in some cases, a solution looking for a problem. Now, that's not me saying that, but you'll read that in the press. So today we're here to discuss how we actually turn blockchain into a mainstream technology for everyone. So to that point, it's going to take a lot of adoption of blockchain technologies for us to be able to call blockchain a mainstream technology. And it could be consumers, it could be individuals, it could be enterprises, it could be governments. Who do you think will be the next major adopter? And what kind of use cases do you think we'll have to provide for them in order for them to actually accept blockchain as a real solution for them?
You can go with that one. To complement what you were saying, I think blockchain is a technology of its own time. So we have a use case because the technology exists. There was a need, right? In a world that globalizes itself, you need a technology that can go across frontiers, cross borders, and legacy systems are very slow to create those bridges between nations, communities, etc. So I actually think that blockchain technology is not here, randomly. I think it's a technology of its own time.
I'd like to kind of just add to that very quickly, because you spoke about constituents, individuals, businesses, enterprise, and governments. I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know where it's going to go, but I know what my preference is, that it continues to be grassroots, that it's powered by the individuals first, that small businesses are built on top of them, and then enterprise and government come last, in my personal point of view. I think very much in the same vein as the, that's right. Right. Very much in the same vein as the American economy, if you really think about it. When it's healthy, it's a consumer-based economy, and the majority of the economy is run by small businesses first, and then enterprise and governments last. And I'd like to keep it that way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Working to get a bank going, a traditional bank, it is stunning how backward the traditional banking technology is, which is what takes so much time to integrate with it. And you can spin up a node on any of the top blockchain networks within hours, maybe days, and sync them. And it's months, if not more than a year, to integrate in with the traditional banking system. And to Jerry's point, enterprises really do truly make things complicated. And they don't operate by the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. And I think so many of the blockchain developers truly do keep it simple, because the benefit is that we're operating on common open back-end platforms. And the whole idea of that is so that anyone can join the networks. It's a concept of openness. And if it's complicated and the standards are too difficult to comply with, then you really truly need to have enterprise scale in order to join the networks. And of course, that's when networks like to build, or when enterprises like to build walled gardens and permission applications to join their networks. And that's not what our industry is about. And it's much more powerful.
Anyone else?
So I probably have a slightly different view. I look at it right now in the terms of maturity of the technology, but also the maturity of the regulation around the world. And what I'm looking at right now is that everything which is born digital and the operating processes are digital by birth, it works really well on blockchain. So essentially, there's going to be two kinds of companies in the world going forward: blockchain-enabled companies and non-blockchain-enabled companies. And the blockchain-enabled will win every single time. Until we get to that part, it will be the gaming industry. There's 2 billion gamers out there who doesn't ask a question when they buy something digital native, right? It's going to be parts of banking. It's going to be in the middle of the enterprise processes. We cannot touch the physical world because it's not born, digitally, but all in the middle. So the SAP, the Oracle financial systems, all of that, we can take that out already with what Cardano have from leads data. So yeah, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I put all this time into my AMAs and my whiteboard videos and blackboard videos and so forth. And on average, they get about 25,000, 50,000 views. And I sum up all the views that I've had on my YouTube channel. I think it's about 1 million or 2. And I say, wow, that's amazing. Like 1 million views, so incredible. And then you look at this video of a cat in a t-shirt playing a keyboard. And the damn thing has 1 billion views. So that's the problem with B2C consumer products. Is it's hard to predict sometimes what is going to light the fuse, ignite, and then suddenly you wake up, you have 2 billion people using it. And there's plenty of things where you plan top down and you've done everything right, but you still don't really take off. And there's plenty of things where you've done everything wrong and somehow you still win. JavaScript is actually the example of that. It took 20 years to fix it. It's still being under construction. But yeah, it's the lingua franca of the internet for programming. So when you think about blockchain adoption and cryptocurrency adoption, really it's more of a question of, well, what consumer experiences are now enabled with this that were not possible before? What made the iPhone magical were things like Google Maps. I remember GPS before smartphones. You guys remember navigating on a phone before smartphones? You know what I did? I went to MapQuest. I printed it out. Yeah, how many of you guys use MapQuest and printed it out? Yeah, yay for MapQuest, right? And then you have this phone. It's like shows you everything, and it's step by step, and it's there, and it's dynamic. You don't have to print it, and it reroutes and stuff. Like that was an amazing experience, and it really wasn't possible at that scale, that cost, that level of consumerization before an interface like that existed. So what the industry is right now trying to figure out is what capabilities is the industry bringing to bear to B2B, B2C, and B2B2BG, or whatever other acronyms exist, that are now new and you've never seen before. So for example, when you think about e-voting, it's a little side thing. Well, let's say you just want to know what day to have the parade. Let's say the Broncos win the Super Bowl. Well, you're going to have a parade on Tuesday or Thursday. What happens when you have the superpower to click a button and poll every single person who's a registered Denver voter and get an answer from them and see statistically what's what with a secure voting system? And it's just like a push thing to their phone. That's the kind of stuff that our industry is going to enable. And we're not quite sure which one of these is going to be the cat video that takes off and gets 1 billion views, and which ones will kind of be like Charles's AMAs and not be so popular. But we'll have something in between. And I think within 5-10 years, we're going to figure it out. And really the key is just to be flexible and adaptive enough that whatever that future happens to look like, you'll be able to be competitive in it.
Interesting. So it's interesting, Jerry, that you said that you thought it was going to be all bottom up when the 2 large announced deals we have are ones with government and ones with enterprise. How do you reconcile that?
I don't think it requires reconciliation. I think it's part of the grand ecosystem, ultimately. All I'm saying is that the center of gravity should be with individuals. And back to Charles's point of B2B4C, the enterprises, you target enterprise and government that serve consumers ultimately. So I don't think it's contradictory at all. I'm just saying that the power should lie with the individuals, and enterprise has their role in that. It just has to be in the right context, and it should be from the bottom up. I think is the ethos of our industry, and ultimately is what makes for a healthy society. We see societies that are bottom up are far healthier, more democratic than societies that are top down. So we should just continue to foster that. And in countries where it's supposed to be democratic, we're seeing the other side coming in, and our industry has a part to play to keep democracies healthy.
Great.
I think the enterprise and the bottom and the top, I don't really understand that. An enterprise sells services to customers. Customers are people, right? So it's always about people. The problem that we have is a friction when you want to switch from one enterprise to another. Try to move your content from Facebook to Instagram or to, WhatsApp. It's a pain, and usually or often it's not even possible. You have to do that manually, right? So with all those offers, digital offers across our industry for the past 10 years, you have a lot of silos, and people are lost in those silos. And logically, I am a user of X, I should be able to interact with a user of Y, right? And blockchain are networks. Blockchain is just, a technicality. Those are networks of people. So how you frictionless experience across these networks for the people. And that's would be my take.
Great. So Caitlin, you said something that I thought was really interesting. You said how difficult it was to set up a bank, a lot of regulatory hurdles. And I think that's true for a lot of enterprises and governments for sure. Wyoming's been a great example of friendly legislation toward blockchain. Do you think there's anything that Wyoming can demonstrate to other jurisdictions about how to treat this technology in a more friendly way so that we can add value for consumers?
Oh gosh, lots, lots and lots of ways. And it's so funny because the smaller governmental units like other states or small countries have been very excited about what Wyoming has done. And the larger states and Washington, D.C. government have tried to ignore us. They're quietly behind the scenes calling Wyoming and asking, hey, can we get a copy of your bank regulatory exam manual? Or can we get a copy of your rules for this, that, or the other thing? But they're very intimidated by it. And it's the classic Gandhi phrase, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then you win. I'm not quoting that correctly, but that's the idea. And it's so funny. I saw the Wall Street Journal article yesterday talking about everything that's happening in stablecoins. And of course, the Wyoming banks, which are already authorized and chartered, we're just waiting for approval from the Federal Reserve. We're all caught up in everything that's going on in Washington, D.C. But do you think the folks in Washington, D.C. want to pay any heed to what's going on in Wyoming? No, we don't get mentioned in the stories. So by the way, I'd appreciate it if you'd all blow this up on social media, because they love to ignore us and they won't be able to forever. But part of it is they won't be able to because they will hear it from their own constituencies. And so there are a lot of alignments. We've had patience. We could certainly have had a more aggressive stance than we're taking, but it's paying off to be patient and just to work with other governmental entities, because there's a long education process. And so far, I think that's been the right approach. But Wyoming won't be patient forever. This is still the place that's leading the charge with the most enabling regulatory environment. And it's precisely because we actually have people in positions of power in the state that have spent the time to understand it, including the regulator, the banking regulator.
Yeah. The important thing about what Wyoming is doing is they're not saying no regulation. They're saying the right kind of regulation. Mm-hmm. They recognize that when you have new and very disruptive technology, that disruptive technology, among other things, often moves at a pace well ahead of where our regulatory landscape is. And so regulators are playing catch up, and sometimes it's easier for them to simply say no than to really understand how we take existing regulatory regimes and change them, modify them, and do what we need to do to facilitate the new technology. And so what Wyoming is doing, which I think is great, is demonstrating that there are different ways to think about blockchain technology. Not to simply say, it's free for all, do whatever the hell you want, but to say that there are different ways to think about how we take what's important ideas of protecting consumers, ideas of preventing fraud, how we take those concepts that we can all agree to and apply them in a regulatory way that makes sense for this new technology. And so when Washington or other states don't pay attention to Wyoming and what Wyoming is doing, they do that at their own risk.
Do you see any other countries that are more friendly?
Well, so that's a great question, because the United States gets bashed a lot in this space
Right.
about, having just an awful regulatory environment. And there are some legitimate criticisms that are warranted. But
Right.
at the same time, we've got a history of having a very strong, robust capital markets regime, strong legal regime protecting consumers. And so that's like trying to move an aircraft carrier. Other countries that maybe didn't have the same legacy regulatory system have a benefit in that they can look at this new technology and experiment and innovate in ways that we can't. So it doesn't mean that the United States is necessarily against crypto, against blockchain, but we do have a structure here that's harder to move quickly. And so just as we can learn a lot from Wyoming, we can also look at what people, especially in smaller developing countries, are doing, where they look at this technology as solving fundamental problems for their people, for their populations that desperately need to be solved. And so for them, looking at blockchain and trying to create an innovative legal regime around that is something we're seeing a lot of wonderful experimentation on. And hopefully some of those things that we're seeing outside of the United States will then come back and we can apply those here in this country as well.
Right. So that brings up an interesting question. We see a lot of, we talked about governments being kind of at the bottom of the stack for adoption, right? But we do see a lot of experimentation in a lot of countries where they're trying to find ways to use decentralization as a value proposition for their citizenry and for themselves, right? Is there any way that we could think about the value proposition for decentralization for them? Is there a way we could articulate it so that, just from what we've seen out in the field?
Well, I think an example, financial inclusion. Now, we know that in a lot of emerging markets, one of the most wonderful things blockchain can do is bring financial services to people that haven't had them. So if you live in a part of the world where you don't have easy access to banking, or whatever banking services are too expensive to utilize, we can bring blockchain solutions to try to democratize and bring that type of financial inclusion. We assume, however, that that's something that's only relevant in emerging markets. It is equally relevant in this country. There are still too many people, even in the United States, that are underserved by traditional financial institutions and structures, where we need to be able to empower them financially and bring them into the economic landscape in a way they never have before. And so we can take those same things that we're seeing in emerging markets and apply them, I think, just as equally to the United States.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. I can add to that. I think things were more decentralized in the past. Centralization has been a product of history, where started with villages and then city-states and then large nations and so forth. And I think the biggest drive towards centralization has been the Industrial Revolution. And we've lost a lot of things that we had in the past. Like if you look at old churches in Europe, they were beautiful structures. Modernization has killed that, because back then you had generational artisans that would work on it.
Right.
And I think blockchain is finally a force in the modern age to kind of push us back to some of that value that we've lost historically. And I think that's an enormous selling point, is that you've lost some of these things. This is why things in the past look better in certain respects, and we can bring that back. And I think that's an incredible thing that we could do.
Yeah, I think I said it before, right? So for those of you who don't know, I live in Switzerland. It's a great country. It has a bit of a federal system, a bit like the United States. And for many, it's seen as a leader also in regulation around blockchain. And I don't know sufficient around Wyoming and the US to have a view on that. But what I do know is that it is our job to help the regulators to understand what is the risk and what is the value add we're getting out of these new technologies. And if they don't understand, they will always take the protective choice, whether that is to keep their share and keep the money, or whether that is to go with where they see the votes are going. And let's be honest, I mean, the people who really understand blockchain, I mean, we are 0.001% of the world, right? And we are going out there with a pure belief that we can change the world to the better. So we need to step a little bit away from the crypto of blockchain and step into what is the utility on blockchain and what is actually needed for these regulators. And what is needed for these regulators to take an educated choice, which might not make them popular today, but ensures that their country and the amount of countries who work together, that they can take the right choices for our planet Earth and our race going forward.
I agree with that because the question is decentralization a political stand? I don't think it is. I think it's because legacy systems are creating friction in our daily life, in a modern world, that blockchain emerges as a choice. And then after, it's not covering everything. You just have the trust layer on top of the internet, but everything has to be built on top. The legal frameworks have to evolve. I was on a panel last week about patents. Patents need to evolve also, because you can't lock the technology anymore, but you need the royalties to pay people who are working hard on some context. So it's a new concept to invent, how you reward people contribution, right? The merit of people.
You know, that there are some institutions that are broken and probably need to be thrown out. But we shouldn't assume that decentralization is intended to get rid of all existing institutions. Decentralization, used the right way, can actually strengthen institutions and bring trust back to institutions and work in a way that facilitates what institutions were meant to do in the first place. And so if we don't trust, for example, I heard you talk about this the other day, if we don't trust the existing voting system, we lose faith in our institutions.
Right.
So rather than throw the institutions out, we use blockchain technology to create a better way to verify voting and create that faith in government again, because we know that the vote that took place was a legitimate vote and not a so-called fake vote. So we can combine decentralization together with our institutional framework, and that, to me, is a win-win for everybody.
You know, institution legitimacy, and why do we care about institutions? We care about institutions because institutions help you navigate complexity. You know, you guys eat food, you drink water, you do things, and you have a lot of faith and trust in that food, that water. People of Flint, Michigan, the institutions failed them. They had lead in their water. How do you know the food you're eating isn't spoiled? How do you know that food doesn't have botulism in it? Well, because there's the FDA. There's all these institutions that exist. Maybe they're good, maybe they're bad. So usually civil society starts breaking down when people lose faith in institutions. They usually lose faith in institutions when institutions demonstrate opaqueness, information asymmetries, hypocrisy, where they seem to have double standards, corruption, these types of things. The point of blockchain technology is that it allows us to reconstruct institutions on top of things that watch the watchers, on top of things that allow us to verify the things we're being told are true. It's less of a question of decentralization and centralization. It's more of a question of what gives you your root of trust. Centralization exists for optimization. That's the point of it. And in many cases, it's desirable. Decentralization exists for resilience. Ecosystems, if one species goes extinct, not everything else goes extinct. It somehow recovers. If a wildfire breaks out, if you have a diverse ecosystem, the jungle recovers, the forest recovers. I live in a ranch. I have a lot of trees on the ranch. Almost all the trees are having a hard time right now. Why? Because we got beetles and fungus and all these things that are striking them. It's a constant battle and a war. One of the root causes of why it's so damaging there is a lack of biodiversity. There's only a few types of trees that happen to be on that ranch. Now that very same pestilence, just a few hundred miles out in Sundance, doesn't have any effect at all because there's far more biodiversity in some of those areas. You see, so it's all a question of, okay, how much resilience do you need for the types of hits the structure is going to take? And that tells you how much decentralization and redundancy you have. Then what types of things are you doing? Who are the consumers of those things? And that tells you how much optimization you need to do. So how much centralization you have. And the orthogonal question is, why do we trust it? Either because you trust the virtue of the people running it, which is always ephemeral, because even if the dad is great, the son's a fuck up. It's true. Look at Cincinnatus, the hero of Rome. His son was so bad that they were actually thinking of executing him for incompetence. But the only reason they didn't do it is no one had the heart to tell the father. So you either trust the virtue of the people, which is a good short-term but terrible long-term solution, or you trust somehow the structure of the institution. And for the 21st century, we need new tools to build new institutions, and that's effectively what we're looking at here.
So this conversation has brought up a couple of things that I want to get to. I think I'll start with digital identities or decentralized identities. In order to serve consumers better, in order to have more decentralized offerings, in order to make sure that we have some kind of transparency, having decentralized identities or DIDs is going to be really important. How do you think that we should treat them, and they might even be used in the next 5 years to enable some of the things that we've been talking about, to give the identities, reputation, and trust to the individual?
I think decentralized identity is an entry into the system, right? You should enter as a person in the system, right? So they should be in the wallet in blockchain, in my opinion, at the very first front of your interaction. The problem is after, what do you share, or what do you want to keep secret or private? And this is called selective disclosure. We need technologies to actually be able to simply determine what you want to exchange with someone or with an institution, and have control on your data. So it's a key element. It's the first element of the system.
Listen, this would lead to some of the things you were talking about with some of the regulation as well, like especially in banking, right? Having digital identities for people or decentralized identities is a really important thing. And it's also where, to your point about where centralized meets decentralized, how do you know who's participating in transactions and contracts and so on? So how do you think these are going to need to evolve over the next few years in order to be as useful as possible to bring blockchain into the mainstream?
Well, gosh, governments control the evidence of identity. What is identity? It's the essence of your being. It's governed by natural law. It has nothing to do with any ID or a piece of paper or any other instantiation of who you are. It is who you are. And so that's important, because right now there are 15 million people who have come into the United States that do not have those papers that can provide evidence of who they are, and that's the unbanked. And there's a tremendous opportunity to create new ways for them to become part of society, because they're outside of what the government says is acceptable identities. And one of the unfortunate realities of the Bank Secrecy Act, which is what requires the banks to collect all this identity information about you, and by the way, share it back and forth. And data in motion is usually less secure than data at rest. And the laws require all this personally identifiable information to be shared around the internet between the banks and other financial institutions, and none of us have a say in that. And by the way, most of it is not very secure because it's not encrypted. So there's an enormous amount that can be learned from this. But we've started to see that private businesses have started to do things that are much more reliable than just accepting a
It's like we're lagging a bit. I'm going to refresh it, guys.
Shared infrastructure, what you can do is you can construct on top of each and every one of those. That's what matters about identity. When someone says this is John Smith, you don't really care about the name, you care about who is John Smith, who is John Galt, who are these people, what have they done, where have they gone, where they've gone to. It's always connected to a context. Do I want to hire them? Do they want them to take care of my kids after school? Do I want to tax them? You know, whatever it may be, you have a context associated with that. Again, a lot of these things are somewhat implicit, centralized, opaque, or siloed. And the people who have the power over society, governments, media, whoever it manages to be, are the people who control the reputation and the people who control the silos. So the magic of DIDs are that they allow us for the first time ever to take some of that power back, because we no longer need central authorities and institutions to be the connecting tissue to move reputation around. That's the key thing that we should never lose sight of, and we have to be so careful because there's a small window of time for new standards to set. Facebook, Microsoft, Google, Apple, all in their own way are creating identity systems, and they're embedding them into consumer products every single person in this room has, whether it be an Android or iOS, and they'll put clever little names on it like Google ID or Google Authenticator or things like Apple Pay or these types of things. Embedded within that is some cursory notion of an identity system. And if whoever wins that, federation or individual, will have a profound impact on your ability to use your life, your ability to get a loan, your ability to get a job, your ability to pay somebody or not be able to pay somebody, the ability to be paid for doing something. So in addition to being our own bank, controlling our own identity and having it be self-sovereign is the other major challenge in the 21st century. And it's so very foundational and fundamental. It's a challenge this industry has to win to survive.
And that's just it. It is a challenge because we can maybe create the tools to take identity back, but all of us still have to then go to the next step, which is to tell governments and enterprises that we are taking the identity back, and this is ours, this is not yours, and we have to change the balance and dynamic between those institutions that just assume they're entitled to all of that information and say, no, you're not. And there may be things that are appropriate for you to have, but there are things that are not appropriate for you to have. And so once those tools are out there, it becomes the role of all of us collectively to make sure that they're utilized in that right way.
There's an interesting point that you are defining. So identity, we should own all identities. We should own all data, right? But those data needs to be useful. My data from my health record in France aren't compatible with the US, right? So I don't have a health record in the US, which was really scary for my doctor. So the ability for the data to be interoperable, the systems to be interoperable, you need a system to program all of that. So for me, blockchain is the system.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I think there's business and there's personal. I think this one I take very personally, and I think everybody does. Your ID, what could be more personal? And I think everybody here, I personally am sick and tired of my accounts being compromised. Last time I checked, every single one of my accounts is compromised. And then you got companies making money off of my data. I'm sick and tired of it. And it makes you feel powerless because, oh, it's the way it is, right? That's the feeling we've come accustomed to. I think it's just a better system, period. And it will ultimately be adopted everywhere.
I really think we're going to lose that war. I think if we cannot change governments, or if we cannot show meaningful participation with a non-fungible voting system and get people to really, show their opinion, we're just not going to win that. The only way we can win that is to prove that we can create a trusted identity on a blockchain, which holds more trust than what the enterprises and the banks are collecting or able to share among them. And if we're not able to do that, then we're lost before we even started the fight.
Could follow on onto that. Ramon, you brought up the topic of NFTs. We've seen a lot of new business models, NFTs, DeFi, come up recently and be quite successful. What do you think the next set of business models might be for blockchain? What are the next frontiers for us for changing industries or changing the way we think about a particular either vertical or market? I know it's a big question.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead if you'd like.
Yes, I'll take a crack at it. We saw the NFT wave start in the last bull market. Right. And then this is the bull market where that became the manifestation of the bull market. And I think what we're seeing in this bull market that will be the manifestation of the next one is all the interoperability across the different systems, because each one of them does something differently. And certain ones do certain things better at certain times. And as a result, what's happened is, we're starting to see the idea of wrapped assets that are trading on other chains. And I think that's a powerful concept. So it's truly cross-chain atomic swaps and interoperability.
Interesting. Yeah.
The developers like that.
What's the next big thing?
I don't have a crystal ball, and I operate in too many countries, and it's really hard for me to judge. But I would like to get to a place where everybody who had success in building a business today on blockchain, and by that has some tokens, that they can actually use them or get them into a fiat currency without the scrutiny we see from regulators and banks in the future. So I think the next couple of years is really going to be ensuring that, cross connectivity, not just among the chains, but also among the existing international settlement and clearing chains. And what does AML and KYC and identity among that really means when we're coming with so powerful concepts as blockchain. I know that's a little bit boring and you probably can't trade that, but I think that's going to fundamentally change how we interact with blockchains. Because what we have today is, if you sit in India and you are a multinational corporate and you want to use Cardano, how can you buy ADA and sell ADA if it's unknown if you're even allowed to hold ADA? You don't know what the regulatory context of that is, the bookkeeping principles, and all of that. So you take the easy choice. You go with a centralized blockchain because it's kind of still a blockchain, right? It doesn't have all the good things, but from you can sell it to the board and you're off with it. And we don't get all the added benefits of this fantastic community. So for me, we really need to go that hard road, which is the interoperability with the existing systems and not just on the chains.
The next big thing is governance. We are looking at how we come together as human beings, how we organize ourselves, how we engage in commerce together. And all of a sudden we've got this new toolkit that allows us to interact, to consult, to work together, to vote together, and to create ideas together in completely new ways using distributed ledger technology, using smart contracts. And we're spending a lot of time thinking about the new ways that we can interact. Wyoming is an example of creating a new type of legal structure. So I think we're going to see how blockchain technology allows us as human beings interact, to launch businesses, to collaborate, and do it in ways that we can bring in more participation, we can get more voices, we can get different points of views, we can vote together, we can do things together, and we're just beginning to see all of the different ways that we can create new types of relationships and interactions, and this technology is going to make it all available to us.
You know,
we also need to speak the language of the entity or the network or the system we want to integrate or welcome to Cardano. For example, Marlowe is a good example. We are speaking the Actus standard for financial institutions to make it easier for them to understand how they can leverage blockchain. If not, we come with a language that no one else understands, right? With 100 new keywords that they have to learn. So we need. I think for the next 5 years, we should focus on looking at standards and working on with particular verticals in the industry to onboard them.
I personally think that the honest answer is we don't know. And it's one of the exciting things about our industry. I mean, NFTs, I mean, that emerged. That's a new word. That's the ones that get me the most excited, is the ones that we don't know. It disrupts every system in the world. So we could take a guess. I think we're making good guesses here. I think my guess would be the disruption of social media would be the one that I see as the next wave. But the honest answer is we don't know, and that's okay, and that's a good thing. And we need to keep our ear to the ground to make sure that we capture the next wave of innovation.
You know, when I was a kid, I had a friend, and every time I'd go over to his house, he never finished anything. You know, you'd see the Super Nintendo, it was on, like the game is still running, but he didn't shut it off. And there's like a half-built Lego, didn't even finish lunch. There's like a half-eaten sandwich. The chocolate milk is half drunk. And I was like, come on, man, you can do it. At least once in your life, you can finish something. Although he ended up going to college and getting a PhD in physics, so I guess he could finish something. Well, anyway, the blockchain space is a lot like that. We've written a lot of checks as an industry that we can't cash. We keep saying, what's the next thing? Where shall we go? Well, are we done with the whole consensus wars, proof of work versus proof of stake? No. Are we done with the whole smart contract thing? No. Are we done with great consumer experiences where grandma can manage private keys properly? No. I mean, just go down the list. Have we actually finished a single damn thing in this industry other than really pissing off regulators? I think we've done a pretty good job of that.
Really good job.
Oh, man, it's fun. They're talking about it. So this industry really needs to go back to first principles and say, okay, what do we need to finish in order for this technology to reach 1 billion people? What needs to get done? And what needs to get done well where we can preserve our principles? Have we as an industry even written them down? Like, what is the Bill of Rights of crypto? Don't actually have it. We have notions of it, like this idea of an unchanging monetary policy. If you go to Bitcoin land and you say, yeah, you know, that 21 million Bitcoins, it's too much like blackjack. Let's make it 22 million. How about that? Yeah, that's not happening. No one, not even Satoshi, can go in and change that now. It's set in stone. So it seems to be an immutable principle. Okay, I'll buy that. Is that universal? Should all cryptocurrencies then have fixed in stone deflationary monetary policies? Is there room for variation there? This notion of inclusive accountability seems like a phenomenal idea. We love it. You can check your neighbor's homework. So if you send me a transaction, I know that the tokens exist and they haven't been double spent. I can verify it myself with the blockchain. That seems like a really good idea. But built into that principle is this concept of homogeneity. Everybody has to have the ability to check each other's work. So that's a replicated system. What happens when the blockchain gets to a yottabyte, exabyte, these enormous data scales? What happens when you have 1 million transactions per second? What happens when the transactions are mostly off-chain and it's a little difficult to see everything that happened? Is it okay to breach that for the sake of scale? Going back to monetary policy, you have these systems that have a bipolar nature to them. On one hand, you have a group of people that say, we really like the store of value, what Bitcoin's brought to the table. You know, over time, it appreciates. Yeah, because it's finite and consumption increases. All right, rather inflexible. But when you look at a smart contract system, you say, we want a system where cost is predictable. We want a system where over time cost goes down regardless of the amount of consumption of it, because we're used to that with consumer products. You see the next big thing come out, it's $5,000. A few years later, it's $200. That's what free market does. It optimizes it. But what we've noticed with smart contract systems is they've become more expensive over time, not less expensive. And that's a feature of the monetary policy. So is that monetary policy then set in stone if that's your goal? And there's a dozen other things that we can dig into and look into just on the principles alone. And that's what you do before you even write a single damn line of code, hopefully. What are you trying to accomplish? Who are you trying to accomplish it for? These things. So I worry less about the next big thing, and I worry more about these days about finishing the things that we've already started. There's always going to be something sexy and exciting and new, and if I've done my job right, the people on this side of the room are going to take care of that. You guys. Why? Because either you like money or you're passionate about solving a problem. It's just that simple, or both. You know, so many people have a backstory. Something happened to me, and now I'm passionate about this. You look at a researcher for pancreatic cancer, the first question you ask is, who died in the family? Almost all of them know somebody who's been lost. If you look at somebody who's deeply passionate about something, usually it's because they've been touched or impacted about it. Or you're just an entrepreneur and you're really ambitious and you want to go build a great business. You guys are going to figure out all those particular problems. But you can't solve those problems unless you're able to cash the checks this industry's written. You need predictable cost. You need great platforms. You need great interfaces. You need app stores. You need billion-person scale networks. You need the ability to process the transactions that you laden these networks with and so forth. These are all the things that are required. And that's what I worry about.
Yeah, and I think to build all of this, we need you. That's what would be my only message today. Come to GitHub, push PRs, push issues, and push the Cardano forward.
Yeah. So Joel, you mentioned governance as something that we really need to pay attention to make sure that people are heard and treated fairly. What do you think the qualities are of the governance structures that we have to create that will be most effective? Is it confidentiality? Is it transparency? Is it fairness?
I think it's probably all of those things.
Yeah.
Again, the tools that we're using allow us to be able to come together. And so how we come together now becomes the important question. We all have different expertise. We all have different skills. A lot of times those skills and expertise that we have are not always used very well. So by bringing together coalitions, and those types of coalitions may constantly change and fluctuate over time given the particular needs, but by bringing coalitions together, we can start to get different voices to the table. We can get different types of experts. We can get different types of opinions and views that ultimately come together to make a better project or a better protocol or a better idea or a better world. And so in return, that's where we can use blockchain tools to make sure that we are providing the data, the information, the transparency going back and forth so that we can communicate and do those things better. And so transparency is important. The ability to participate with a certain level of privacy so that you're able to participate without negative consequence is important. The ability to act in a socially responsible way using this technology is appropriate. So all of those things together, I think, are going to be what we experiment with these new types of governance systems and management systems and legal entity systems that are all going to emerge from this.
So Charles, just to follow up on what you said, how do you think that we end up cashing the checks that we need to finish the things that we need to with the community as part of an ecosystem set to really build the infrastructure that everybody's going to need in order to create the next set of applications?
Oh, we just got to finish Cardano. That's all we really have to do. It's true. But anyway, a little levity aside. first you have to be intellectually honest about what's cashable and what's not, like
Right.
how much is really in the bank account. We have an honesty gap in this industry. There's a lot of ventures that live in the realm of tell you how many TPS or this, that, or next generation this, or word salad this and that. It's noise. It's absolutely noise. And you got to just take a step back and you say, okay, what collections of consumer applications do we feel at the moment something in the industry can run within a parameterization of principles? And then what you do is you just kind of work your way outward from there. So are we at the level where we could replicate Microsoft Windows? No. Okay, so that's an outer boundary. Are we at the level that we could replicate the success of Angry Birds as an industry and run at that scale with a great user experience? Maybe, maybe not. You see, so start building that hierarchy. Start walking your way through. What can you build today, right now? And what would you like to build 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? And then what you need to do is be very clear about what principles and regulations are necessary for those things. I'm a simple guy in many respects, and so I really like simplicity. And this is why I studied mathematics and other things, why I think the way I do. I'm always trying to take something complicated and make that complicated thing understandable. And if I can't do that, then I don't understand it well enough, or the idea is not well enough formed to be understandable. So you look at moral hazards as just a basic example. Kids get unfairness. If Bill gets a sandwich and Alice gets a sandwich and Jane doesn't get a sandwich, something seems wrong. So similarly, should it be the case that when you guys buy something, you know less than another group of people through no fault of your own, but because of a market structure, inside information? Should it be the case that when you trade on an exchange, that your order is deprioritized and someone who's close to the owners of the exchange, their order gets prioritized? You mostly would say, no, that's not fair. That should be illegal. You see, and these are basic things that our industry sometimes seems to get wrong. And if we can't even get that right, how dare we lecture the rest of the world on how we're going to save them? It's just common sense. So those checks have to be cashed properly. We have to go back to first principles and say, what moral hazards do we want to avoid? What guardrails do we want to install? What basic human rights do we want to embed into the operations of the system? So it's not, don't be evil, but it's can't be evil. Don't be corrupt, can't be corrupt. These basic things. And then you look at the application space and say, what application can run this moment right here with this technology with those principles? And it may take 10 years, 20 years, 30 years for us to get there. But when we get there, it's a better world. It's a more honest world. It's a world with integrity and transparency. It's a world where we don't get lied to on a regular basis. And that's the world I just want to live in. So it's the long haul. That's why we got the Turtle Island. We're reminding people it is a marathon. It's not a race. Well, marathon is a race. It's not a sprint.
All right. Well, with that, we only have a few seconds left. So I just want to thank everybody on the panel for your thoughts. It's been really informative for me. I've enjoyed this. Hopefully you all have too. Thank you. Everybody on the panel. And with that, we are out.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you. Yeah.
Well done.
Ah.
like 30 seconds.
What's up, guys? I believe that is it for Cardano Summit 2021. Thanks for sticking around and watching the final keynote. Yeah, if you guys don't mind, smash that thumbs up on the way out. Subscribe if you aren't subscribed. I got lots of cryptocurrency news and updates that I do regularly. So be sure you guys subscribe for that one. So, but yeah, I think that's it. Let me just double check calendar. I thought this was going to go to 7 p.m., but apparently they ended it 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So yeah, that's it, guys. Let's go see if I can talk to some people here. I don't know how to turn that audio off. Let me see. Let's join a voice chat. Oh, no one seems to be talking. I think someone was there. The utility. Let's see what Cardano's sitting at right now. 225 still, it looks like. 220, yeah, 225, so not too crazy. I see what you're saying. Yeah, guys, that looks like it's it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Here's the panel. They had everybody who they were.
Hey, everybody, we've got about 1 minute left, and then we've got the final speech.
Hold on 1 second, I'm streaming.
Cardano Summit 2021. So grab a drink, get back to the table, get ready for the man himself. 50 seconds left.
Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what this is. Unless they're just replaying stuff. Let me beam back down. It's weird. I don't see where the... Oh, there it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing for the last time of the Cardano 2021 Summit, Charles Hoskinson.
All right, guys, never mind. I guess this is the final speech. Good thing I didn't end it. Thanks for sticking around, yeah.
There you go. 25 minutes. 24:45. All right, fuck it. Hi, everyone. Hey! Did you all have a good summit? We talked about a lot over this summit. 4 tracks: utility, governance, impact, and adoption. And each of those tracks, you got to see over, I think, over 80 presentations, and there's so many more, so much more content coming. You wouldn't believe how much we had to cut, which will be like the director's cut of Cardano 2021. I promise you it'll be like The Hobbit. We'll just keep adding. And there's hundreds more. And all of them, you got to see amazing people, some old, some young, everything in between, from all around the world, united by some vision to do something interesting. In the adoption track, we talked about a journey where we went from hundreds of people, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, to well over 1 million people across all of the users of Cardano, the Yoroi users, the Daedalus users, the Reddit, the Telegram. And it keeps growing. People in over 100 countries, all around. I was like, wow, that is such an incredible story. We talked about adoption at the business level. We saw great partners like Dish get Boost. Fortune 250 company, 8 million users with Boost. And what they bring to the network is so much opportunity and so many challenges and so much unique technology that has to be built and brought to bear. And they're a partner that we can grow with, learn from, and encourage so many others in the ISP world to join the Cardano family, small and large. You saw from World Mobile in Zanzibar, who I'm going to be visiting next month on site in Zanzibar, where they're talking about how to connect the unconnected, to bring people together, to allow people to explore complete new models of being an ISP. Instead of saying you have some big monolithic top-down company, maybe we can franchise it and your next door neighbor can provide internet to the entire community as a small business owner. We saw so much other adoption at the governmental level. You guys have heard about Ethiopia. There are dozens of other countries that we're talking to, have reached out to us, and they're talking about everything from how do we better manage the water, how do we take care of property registration, let's discuss e-voting, let's think about the next generation stock market, the next way of handling commodities. That is adoption that once pushed through will be at the scale of tens of millions to hundreds of millions. God, I hope we have a little bit more time, but because boy, it's going to be fun to handle that and onboard that. But it's coming. And what's so incredible is it's not just coming from a handful of entities. So many of you are trying to bring your governments, your communities, small and large, into the Cardano family. From, I know the mayor, I know the county council, I'm real good friends with the governor, I'm from this place, I'm from that place. There was a guy came in here, he says, Charles, what will it take to get you to Tonga? I said, I want to come to Tonga. I love the food there. My belly does too. That's adoption. And we had a lot of great presentations there, a lot of amazing people there. We saw all of the candidates, I believe, for Fund 6 in Catalyst. Did you guys see some of those pitch videos? Some of you are in them. And this was an opportunity for people of our community, many of which I've never met, I've never interacted with, to tell their stories of who they are, what they want to accomplish, where they want to go, what they want to do for you, the Cardano community. And guess who gets to decide who wins and who loses there? You, the Cardano community. And every single round that's just going to grow. 154 right now have been funded. Well, probably 100 more this round. And it just keeps going and going. It's the damn Energizer Bunny of VC. Never stops. Never gonna stop. We'll wake up, blink our eyes, 1,000. Wake up, blink our eyes, 10,000. All across the world. Some from Africa, some from South America, some from Southeast Asia, some from Australia, some from New Zealand, some from North America. Doesn't really matter. They're coming because they want to build. They want to create. We heard some great announcements. For example, our partner Emergo. They've announced that they're really scaling up their VC side. $100 million fund they've announced. How about that? The C Fund, which is my venture capital firm in partnership with Wave, it now has over 30 million assets under management. We started at 10 million. Most of it's value appreciation. We're doing pretty good with that portfolio. And it keeps growing. And we've already announced several ventures that we've invested in. We've seen great partners on the utility track, like, for example, DC Spark. They came from Emergo. And now they have Flint, a new light wallet. Boy, do we need that. Ecosystem needs as many mobile experiences as possible. Not only that, they've talked about how do we create Ethereum interoperability within the ecosystem. So we talked about Mamba. We talked about a project of how to bring that in through side chains. But true to Cardano's form, diversity is the key to success and resilience. DC Spark also has a plan independent of Mamba. And both of them, I think, are coming very soon. We talked a lot about smart contract security and quality. This is a moral hazard in our industry. It's one of our biggest failings. We tell people, use this application, do this thing, and then it blows up. Tens of millions and hundreds of millions, then billions of dollars get lost. Yet, somehow, some way, doesn't seem to get better, just seems to get worse. Well, how do you solve it? You solve it with certification. You solve it with auditing. You solve it with standards, rigorous coding practices. So we saw runtime verification. We saw QVIC. We saw CertiK. We saw all of these firms with decades of collective experience in the realm of formal verification, program verification, the kinds of guys you call when you want to build a train, an airplane, or a car and make sure the damn thing works. And you live to tell the story. And he said, how do we take these amazing innovations born of academia and forged in industry and bring them together and apply them to our industry in a way that scales down to an agile development team? Not PhDs living in a lab with $1 million budgets, but entrepreneurs, 2-3 people working together. How do we get it to work for them? And then there's the question of, well, what should the experiences be like? And it turns out there's this beautiful isomorphism between certification and an open app store. Right now, the curation model that's been pushed upon the consumers is, don't worry, Papa Apple will take care of you. They're going to figure it out one way or another. They'll tell you who the good people are, who the bad people are. If they're in the app store, somebody's checked it. And of course, sometimes they decide that people shouldn't be in the app store because maybe they compete with Papa Apple. Maybe they compete with Google. Maybe they compete with Microsoft. That's not a good model. No one wants that. That doesn't help innovation. That doesn't allow you to live your dreams, especially if you want to do unorthodox things. So what if you create a store where it's always open, anybody can come, anybody can build, you just submit a transaction to the blockchain, and it's there, but because you have the ability to certify, the way it gets visualized, presented, it appears to the consumer is different. The more work you do to prove the things you have are high quality, not a scam, secure, the better that appears. The less work you do, the worse it appears. Pretty simple concept, right? You preserve openness, but you leave the burden upon the people to prove to the people who are going to be downloading this, using this, trusting it with their identity, their money, their privacy, those components. You leave it to them to prove to you that they've done their homework and they've done it right. What Cardano is doing with so many great partners in the utility track is delivering that to you, the developer. And Plutus was built hand in glove to ensure that this happens. We saw great presentations like Marlowe. Marlowe is just such a beautiful concept. Paint by numbers for financial contracts. Whenever you have a logic that's hard, there's a lot to think about. Generally speaking, what real engineers do, real technologists do, is they build a DSL. Databases are hard things. Relational databases, to access it, to pull something out of a particular memory cell. Every implementation is different, from Oracle to Microsoft to MySQL. So we created SQL, a domain-specific language to unify the way you communicate with a product. And then suddenly, database administrators don't have to have PhDs in computer science. They can just use it to access data. So analogously, why do we not, in this industry, when you are writing smart contracts that control billions of dollars, why don't we have a DSL to make that simple, easy, yet secure? And that was the design brief for Marlowe. And we said it needs to be so simple that I need to have a window with little bricks, and I can take a 12-year-old from Shoshone High School, run them on in, sit them down, and have them click those bricks together, and out comes the other side, a real contract. Use a SAT solver, all these other things under the hood, and we know it works. We know it's not going to crash, yet a 12-year-old can build it. That is the dream and vision of Marlowe and the DSL-driven approach. In the utility track of Cardano, what we've done is we've shown that not only is that possible, it's easy. We look to Hydra when we talk about where are we going. Well, we're successful, and boy, the world's going to know it soon. And what does that mean? Tens of millions, then tens of billions of transactions, then trillions of transactions one day running on Cardano, which means we need to have an all-of-the-above solution to scalability. Optimize the base layers, side chains, roll-ups. We need to have different ways of handling like clients that preserve inclusive accountability. And yes, we need the ability to process things off-chain with a reasonable trust model. The power of Hydra is we built extended UTXO, and we built Hydra hand in glove so that these things work together. They're isomorphic with each other, a word you'll hear a lot. It's just seamless. From the consumer perspective, they don't care if it settles on the main chain or on Hydra. It just works. That's the vision. And if we get there, that means you can write applications that are truly scalable. You can have 1 million customers. You can have 10 million customers, and it just works. The infrastructure takes care of it. That's the vision. We talked a lot about impact at this conference. We said, hey, we have a big heart. We have a big soul. This is not just about making money. This is not just about building some piece of technology that is a novelty. We care a lot about bringing everyone along for the journey. We care a lot about the collective wealth of experience, knowledge, and resources we create for everyone, everywhere. And that's what we've been talking about in this conference. You know, those Silicon Valley types, they seldom go to Cape Town and have a conference there. We did. And we were all over the world. There's events all over the world. I think there was 29 being held. Many places, including Vietnam. That has one of the best cryptocurrency communities you'll ever meet and see. Last time I went to Ho Chi Minh, over 3,000 people showed up for my speech. It was incredible. And I was told it was a small conference. It gives you a sense of the just passion, the enthusiasm, the excitement. And that is where the impact comes from. Because almost every conversation I have, when I go to these types of places, they keep saying, how do we make it transparent? How do we make it fair? And how do we ensure that it lasts even if the government doesn't want it to, or some power agency doesn't want it to? How do we make sure that once it's out there, it's the people's, it belongs to them? So we had many presentations along the lines of the heart of Cardano. There are a lot of stake pool operators here. Come on. Yeah. And a lot of you donate some of your proceeds to charity, whether it be clean water. Gal down in Argentina that buys meals for kids. Simple stuff. You're small businesses, but you're small businesses with a soul and a heart. You care. That's the spirit of Cardano. And we showed that here at this summit. Presentation after presentation where people got to tell their stories and show the impact. And I think the message we want people to leave with is, we're just getting started. We're going to change everything. Then we look to governance. Oh, governance. This is the hardest one of all of them. Boy. Why? Because do we have a government that works? Exactly. The one thing of all the things that I know from the places I've been to 52 countries the last few years, you know, the number one complaint is, my government doesn't work. The Swiss say it, the Russians say it, the Chinese say it, the Japanese say it, the Americans, we say it. No one's happy with their government. So yet somehow, some way, we must build a government for Cardano together. That works. Good luck. And you know what? We're going to get it done. And we've been showing every step of the way how to do it. You get the incentives right. You Get people to participate. Not I voted, but I thought about it. How many people vote versus how many people actually think about their vote? Put the effort in, weigh the issues, talk to people, these types of things. And that's what we've been doing with every step of the way, the Voltaire agenda, from concepts like the DCF, which we introduced here, which is about how do you bring great consortiums together, dozens of powerful actors with hundreds of millions of dollars to go do crazy stuff. Yeah, we're even breaking the mics. 2, how do we transform Catalyst to have total control over the system parameters? You don't like K, you want to make it bigger? Well, you should decide that. You don't like the pledge factor, you want to change it to something else? Well, you should decide that. How do we get that done in a way that's fair and balanced for all the stakeholders who are at the table, and we leave no one behind? And we've seen a lot of great presentations, a lot of great efforts. We've seen superheroes like Door, for example, who's been tirelessly working with you, the community, for well over a year. I don't think the dude sleeps. Honestly, I just think he just has a pile of work and he just zips up his blanket and hangs out right here, wakes on up, gets right back to work, Monday through Sunday, 7 days a week, and loving it. Because the problem deserves that kind of attention, and you deserve that kind of attention. It's pretty amazing what we've seen. And he's right there, he's smiling. Yeah, give him a hand. There's a lot of superheroes here. And I want to thank them all. I don't have enough time to thank them all. I really don't. And I also want to thank each and every one of you for being part of this community. You know, Cardano is nothing. It has no value unless there are people who use it and there are people who care about it. Those 4 tracks we talked about so much, but what we showed these 2 days, the cryptocurrency space, is we're here to stay, we're huge, and we're going to get it done. That's what we did. One more thing. Always wanted to say that. So, some of you may recall that we released a very interesting paper not too long ago. It had something to do with like algorithmic stablecoins. And if you actually seriously read the paper, the first thing you'd say is, I don't understand the paper. Because it was an unreadable paper. It had lots of math, lots of text, lots of formal method stuff inside of it. And we've had a skunk works of people working diligently for the last few months to build a prototype of that. And I said, you know, wouldn't it be so cool to pull a Hyperloop, design it, and then give it to somebody who really knows what he's doing? So we said, gosh, what partner do we have that has the necessary experience to take this amazing piece of technology and make it real, make it consumerizable, get it into payment systems, get it so that Starbucks could accept it, all of these things. How do we find a partner like that? Well, it turns out we have one. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Shahaf from Cody.
Hello, Wyoming.
Tell them a little bit about Jed.
Well, currencies will be digital in the future. Nobody can deny that. And stable coins are going to be a major part of it. And Jed is one of the most sophisticated algorithmic-based stable coins out there. And it's more than just a stable coin for payments or DeFi. This will be important on the protocol level to have prediction of cost predictability. So we're super excited about this. And Cody is the issuer, and we want to welcome everybody to log in, even right now, to djed.xyz and start minting in the coming weeks or so.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you, his team, I visit them in Tel Aviv, is one of the best I've ever seen. It's a rare combination of just brilliant business minds and brilliant technical minds who also understand how to navigate the regulatory reality of the world. And, you know, when we design, Jed, we realized that this is the foundation upon which we can start discussions for central bank digital currencies. This is the foundation upon which we can discuss value stability in general, not just pegged to the dollar, but pegged to any notion of value, and baskets of cryptocurrencies. It's a well that just keeps on giving. And so if there's going to be a partner who finds a way to bring that to market, you got to have guys that have the ambition to do all of the above.
And more.
And more. So thank you so much for being part of the family. And again, go to djed.xyz. You guys are the absolute best. In the coming months, we're going to see so much, we're going to build so much, and we're going to build it together. And I cannot wait for Cardano Summit 2022, because we're going to show them how great we are. Thank you.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was the end of Cardano Summit 2021. Charles Hoskinson making an announcement about Cody. I don't know what exactly, guys, was that. I was kind of half paying attention because I got stuff going on. Was that a partnership? I already know they were working with Cody, but I didn't catch it. He's like, oh. All right. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I'm Crypto Airborne, daily news, cryptocurrency updates and whatnot, live streams, interviews. Smash that like on the way out. Make sure you guys subscribe. I'm only 5 away from 400. So let's try to make it 400 here in the next couple of minutes. We got 46 of you guys watching. I really appreciate it. Have a great night. Let's check the Cardano price on our way out. I know it was down today. Oh, it went up 1 cent since the beginning of the stream. Actually, it went down now that it refreshed. So, you know, buy the rumor, sell the news, who knows? But there's still, in the back macro perspective of things, Cardano, I believe, is going to be a game changer. So, Mighty Man, it will go tree fitty soon. I hope so, bro. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Have a great night. I'll talk to you guys all later.